Hi guys, welcome back to yet another review, and this time around I'm bringing you the INTUAURA balance. This is a single LED 10mm DLC PEEQ driver, diaphragm driver, sporting a all resin shell as you can see, and with this venting system which helps to control not only the exit of the air from the front but also from the rear of the driver, and that in that way obviously then control issues like impedance or unwanted resonances, and try and give you an overall more balanced, more coherent sound reproduction. Fitment is very nice. It's a very light IM actually. I was surprised because you look inside and you see a chunky looking driver, but it's actually a pretty light IM. As for the accessories that the balance brings, it's got a nice enough cable. The only nitpick really would be the fact that it's only got a 3.5 termination. I would have liked to have seen a 4.4 as well. Brings a nice enough case, good size, everything fits nicely. Some good quality tips, wide bores and narrow bores. I'm actually using the wide bores, and a little pouch here as well to protect the IMs themselves. So in terms of what it offers, it's I guess acceptable. I mean, there are IMs offering more at the same value and even cheaper. But for $159, you are getting a nice resin shell. You are getting some technical, a nice quality driver, a good technical design aspect as well with regards to how they've tuned the driver itself. That they haven't just thrown pieces together. So you can see some R&D has been taken into account here. And that's it. I mean, you can't really complain too much. What do I have here to kind of situate the balance with, and not necessarily give it a position or an overall position? I've got here some IMs at varied price ranges, just like the INTUAURA, the balance which I got from Linsoul, which by the way I thank for their for them sending me the IM. I've got here the Clavalon Delta, another IM from Linsoul, $119, also a single LED. On this side I've got the Duno Kima 2, which I think is an IM that has been a little bit much forgotten. And it's a pity because the Kima 2 is a very good IM. It really is a truly good IM. Also about $109, $110 more or less. Next to that, the SimGod EA500 LM, priced at around $90. Next to that, the Moondrop Cadence, about $179. And next to that, the Tanstream Fusion, about $129, which I just recently reviewed. They all have kind of a similar vibe, and that's why they're all here. That's the reality. So be it from the Delta all the way to the Fusion, there is some commonality here, and what changes between them is how much energy is placed in the mid bass and how much energy is then placed in the upper mids and treble, and that's basically the difference that occurs here. I would say that the Clavalon, the Balance, and the Duno Kima 2 belong to a first group of IMs. Let me just quickly place them here so that I exactly, and I would say that these three are the ones that probably have the closest style of tuning. Maybe the Duno Kima 2 just a smidge more mid-bass impact, while the Delta and the Balance have a little bit less. But I mean, look, honestly, between the three of them, there's not that much of a significant difference. While then, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Cadence, the Fusion, and the SimGod are the ones that have again the most similarity between them. Even if on graph the Cadence doesn't the Cadence doesn't seem to have the same sort of upper mids and treble as the SimGod or as the Fusion, these three sound very similar. The SimGod is also the one here that has the most bass below 100 out of all of the IEMs. So I would say that there's this style of tuning here, which is maybe a little bit more organic, a little bit more old school, a little bit more lush. And then you have this type of tuning on this side here, which is going to be pending towards the more clinical, the more detail-oriented style of tuning. And it's going to be then just different levels of how intense that tuning has been or hasn't been. As for the balance, bass, the balance, as the name implies, is all about being balanced in its sound. So, the moment I started listening to it, I wasn't. I have to admit that I wasn't totally blown away, and I wasn't like, oh wow, this is something novel that I've heard. No, what I did notice was a very smooth sound, very smooth, very easy to listen to, very pleasant. A type of IM that you put in your ears and you forget that you have it in your ears, and you listen to it for hours and hours and hours. And that's exactly what the balance does, in my opinion, above all, very well. It's a very unfatiguing IM. It's a very easy IM to listen to, and it's all a product of how they've basically tuned the bass, the mids, and the treble. The bass is smooth, it's relaxed. I mean, we're talking about a bass gain of, give me just 1 second, we're talking about 6 dBs of bass gain, so that's non-offensive. As well, the pinna gain as well, very smooth, rises up and peaks at about 3.5k. That 100 hertz to where it corresponds in terms of the mids corresponds to around 2 kilohertz. So as I was saying, that 100 to the point hertz point corresponding to the mid-range point there of about 2 kilohertz, which is ideally I like it there or above. It gives that nice overall sound, which is very mid-focused, but it's got just the right amount of warmness in the bass. When I compare the balance, for example, with the Clavilon, with the Delta, or with the Kima, the Clavilon perhaps a little bit less detailed than the balance overall, and the Kima perhaps a little bit more mid bass rich, so a little bit more slam on the mid bass. But overall, the three of them sound very, very equal, very, very balanced, very, very easy to listen to IMs, very easy to listen to IMs. In terms of the highs and of the upper mids and treble, and then the extension past 10k, again, nothing that I can point out as a negative yay for the balance. Beautifully executed, smooth, detailed, elegant, very elegant. It's I think, as I just mentioned earlier, the best words here to describe the sound of the balance is elegant, balanced, easy to listen to. In the story, I mean, just by contrast, you take the balance and you take the SIMGOT, and I'm sure most people after 20 or 30 or 40 minutes of SIMGOT will probably be either lowering the volume or actually taking it out. And this is nothing against the SIMGOT, the A500 LM. I love the LM, mind you. It's just about which is the one that will be the most unfatiguing, which is the one that's going to be the easiest to listen to for the longer period of time, which is the one that you crank the volume and it will scale better, which is the one that will be more forgiving with most dongles. The balance will definitely be one of those IMs, and it will be more forgiving than the LM. Definitely, you have to be a little bit more careful with how loud you like listening to music, what dongle you have to listen to music. On the other hand, obviously, if you are a detail freak and you like detail, the LM just obviously there's no contest between the two of them. And if you also like bass, definitely, yeah. So I would even go as far as to say, by comparison, the LM500 sounds V-shaped. But that also couldn't be, or wouldn't be a correct assessment on my part, because the LM500 is a really good sounding IM, or rather the 500 LM is a really good sounding IM, and taking into account the type of tuning that it has, and that it actually shifts the overall style here to a more clinical cadence fission type of sound, it's top marks, sir. Nothing to be said there. Technically, timbre and tonality, I think, is the takeaway here. Definitely, timbre and tonality is the strong point of the balance, much like on the Kima. I would say timbre and tonality on the Clavilon is behind these two. In terms of the technical capabilities here of the fission, of the cadence, and of the LM500, I would say definitely detailed retrieval, so soundstage, detailed retrieval, so twinklies and sparklies are definitely where these three excel. I would say fission and LM, and then cadence. Compared to these three, definitely more clinical, definitely more detailed. I would say even borderline cold with certain music as compared to these. So these are more lush, more organic. These are more clinical, more detailed. But the interesting thing, like I said, is that they kind of have the same vibe. It's just how they've balanced out things. So that's, look guys, there's really not much more that I can say about the balance. It's a good IM. It's, it does what it's supposed to do properly. What is its biggest drawback? it's the price point, and it's not a question of being a drawback. It's you paying here for an IM which can be considered more of a boutique IM. Okay, it's a more low volume IM in terms of production, so obviously you're going to pay that extra. Which is the IM out of all of here that makes the most sense in terms of value for money? Probably the 500 LM, because I mean I've seen this thing at $70. So at $70, there's nothing that these other IMs here, however good they are, can offer that just outright beats the 500 LM. There's nothing. Even at $90, it's an unreal value. Be it the Cleveland, be it the balance, or be it the Kima, they don't have any exchangeable nozzles, none of that as well, while these three have, and that to a certain extent also justifies their value as opposed to, in terms of value for money, what you get as opposed to these. But I would say that the one that, as I mentioned, that jumps out as terms of overall value for money is definitely the 500 LM. In terms of sound, the IEMs here that I would say, and not wanting to place them in any specific order, but if you ask me which is my personal taste, which are the IMs that I personally would take, I would say Kima, Balance, and Fission. These are the three that I would personally take first, and then the Cadence, the Simgot, and the Delta second. Which are the IMs that I think the majority of people will fancy the most, the majority of people will accept the most? I think definitely the 500 LM. I think more people will probably like the Cadence as opposed to the Fission. That's just a personal opinion of mine, but I think these two will probably be the ones that are the most liked. And then on this end here, I would say probably the Balance and the Kima will end up being the ones that come out on top. But the reality is, as I've repeated before, they are very closely matched. These IMs are very, very closely matched. There isn't day and night differences between them. You can pick up on them, yes, you can, but it's not huge differences. And honestly, you can't go wrong in terms of sound with any one of them. It's just a question of how much they cost where you live. Are you able to listen to them to get a full feel for the IM or not? Value for money, all those things when you take them into account. Do you have IMs that perhaps are similar in terms of overall sound or not? Those are things that all should be considered. But without a doubt, all of them are good. All of them are fantastic IMs. And overall, if I was to say which is the least fatiguing IM out of all of them, I would say the Balance, definitely. The Balance will be the IM that I would listen to for the longest period of time. And I actually saw, on the one go that I was listening to it, I ended up listening to it for almost 2 hours straight. So that shows how unfatiguing it is and how easy it is to just listen to it and continue changing songs and going from various genres and seeing what it does with this genre, what it does with that genre. Yes, of course, there were times that I would have liked a little bit extra detail up top, and because I was getting it from the Fission, I was getting it from the LM. There was times I would want a little bit extra bass or mid bass impact because I was getting it from the Dima. But overall, in terms of a rounded package, the Balance is definitely there. Okay, guys, let me quickly just show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so here we have now the graph for the INTUAURA Balance, and as you can see, it's just like I mentioned earlier in the review. Smoothness is the name of the game. Nice gliding bass, no bleeding to the mid, so it's clean, detailed mids. Mids are the star of the show, yeah, without a doubt. With the bass coming in just the right amount. That 100 Hz point there corresponds to roughly 2 kHz, much like is the case as well in the Cleveland Delta, which I've just placed. Actually, you just make the Cleveland Delta in blue so it actually stands out so you guys can see what I'm talking about. As you can see, the Cleveland Delta, very much the same. But overall, I think the Balance just has a little bit more detail up here, which maybe justifies it over the Delta slightly, even though it's more expensive. And the Duno Kima, let me make the Duno Kima here in green. Hopefully it will stand out enough. Let me see here. I think, yes, actually, we just take the Delta out. Okay, the Kima with regards to the Balance, as you can see, very similar, just a little smidge more mid-bass impact here, which just warms up the few songs here and there a little bit extra. It maybe just gives them, to me at least, a more realistic sensation. But otherwise, Kima to or Balance, phenomenal IMs. As compared with the other three, which were the Cadence, the Fission, and the 500 LM, as you can see, all also having the same sort of tuning, especially the 500 LM and the Fusion, although yes, there's definitely a bass discrepancy here. The 500 LM is definitely more bass present. And the cadence doesn't sound as let's say behind in the upper mids and treble as it would make you believe by looking at the graph. The reality, all of them, and let me just place all of them up now here so you guys can have a look. All of them, they kind of very much come together. The things here that jump out are the extra bass of the 500 LM. Okay. The other aspect that jumps out here is the extra mid-range energy that you have in the Fusion. So you can see the upper mids and treble of the Fusion jump out, the bass of the LM jump out, and then the rest, if I actually take here quickly away this and I take away here the sim god, you can see that the other four all kind of are very evenly matched, very evenly matched. I mean, the thing is that the only thing here that doesn't make sense is that the cadence, although matched with, for example, like the delta with the balance. Let me just kind of show you here. So that's the Moondrop. This is the Moondrop cadence with the balance. But you listen to one and the other, and I would say that the cadence is brighter sounding in this aspect, in this part of the spectrum of upper mids and treble, than what the balance is. The balance doesn't no, and I think it's down to something which I've seen already happen many times, which is one is using a metal shell and one is using a resin shell. The resonances introduced by the shell will change the sound, will alter the sound. That's without question here. So all the IEMs here that that are using that metal shell will tonally sound different to a similar IEM with a similar tuning in a resin shell. Guys, and that's it. I mean, there's really not much more I can say about the balance. If you have the chance to listen to it, give it a go. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.